5? 5. What? You okay?
Juvenile crime. How accountable should parents of young offenders be, and should they be fined for their actions of their children? Tonight, WREG's Alex Coleman takes a look at the problem, the parental accountability debate, and whether some think it will really make a difference.
At a time when some say juvenile crime almost seems to be running rampant in Memphis.
They feel as though they can continue to commit these crimes without much repercussion at all.
A bill passed Monday in the Tennessee Senate now takes aim at the parents of young offenders to hold them more accountable and pay for the actions of their children.
I don't see that it's really holding the kid accountable, just the family instead.
I really don't think it'll really have an effect on the youth. I mean, these kids, they got so much they're thinking about it doing. They're not really worried about the long-term effects.
Last year, Memphis police told the city council it arrested more than 4,000 juveniles, including more than 500 for motor vehicle theft. Crimes like those are one reason the Senate passed what's called the Parental Accountability Act.
We need to do whatever we can to try to get the attention of parents so that raising their kids is something that's higher on the to-do list than like the 20th item.
Republican Senator Brent Taylor of Shelby County is the bill's sponsor. It would allow juvenile court judges to require parents to pay restitution of up to $1,000 for every crime their child commits after being arrested.
This is not meant to be punitive, but if it encourages parents to pay a little closer attention to their parents and to their children rather, and what they're doing, then I think it will all have been worth it.
Some Memphis Democrats agree a plan of action is needed, but they say this bill could punish parents who can least afford to pay the fines.
Sometimes parents have to be held criminally liable for some of the actions of our children. However, I'm not for adding another tax, so to speak, that $1,000 on top of everything else that a lot of our lower income parents are having to deal with.
And earlier this month, Interim Police Chief C.J. Davis says she met with juvenile court authorities to come up with innovative ways to hold parents more accountable.
Judge Schickman and I have talked about mandatory parental classes that some parents would also have to take. Your child commits a crime and you know, or this child has done this over and over again, and you know that that child is involved. If a car shows up in front of your house, you know that's not your car.
The debate getting louder over more parental accountability as juvenile crime continues. Alex Coleman, WREG-TV, News Channel 3.
A discussion will certainly be following.
It was a lady who I was locked up with who was in there because her son wouldn't go to school. So they told her it's her responsibility to make her son go to school because he's a minor, which I believe is true. So they locked her up for 15 days to tell her son missed 15 days of school.
And you think that was... So, Mr. Five here, and, you know, the video we just watched, trying to really have here one of my partners who has her own organization, the Girls Academy, and she's also a parent, so I just wanted to get some feedback on that. But, so one, when you talk about accountability with young people, right? Because that's what we're talking about, juveniles, right? These are kids. I think that we have a problem in this country that we look at kids and we look at kids of color in mostly poorer neighborhoods, we're talking about Memphis, as a state, because we just finished doing that film about juveniles in Memphis with Romeo, the whole juvenile doc, right? So we see all the sort of incidences of young people who have mental health in that documentary, the young girl who was in foster care who was being abused, right? And then got charged for defending herself against the foster care agent. And then you had Romeo who had a history of family violence who led to his violence, right? And so we're not taking accountability for the services that we're providing for the young people, but we're holding them accountable for actions of survival. So like car theft, incarceration, crimes that are considered crimes that kids are doing to hold their parents accountable without recognizing the stature of the people the stature of the people they were talking about. One, when you talk about people of color and youth of color, justice impacted youth, you have to come into understanding that for hundreds of years, this country has impacted negatively people of color. So you're coming from a parent household that doesn't have generational education, that doesn't have generational wealth, that doesn't have the necessities that your counterparts do. So you look on TV, see the little white kids, see other kids from other states partying and having fun and living their life, and you want to do that too. But you're poor, you can't have food, you can't have clothes. So you go and take what you don't have, which is I can understand that. I'm not saying I validate it, right? You have something, I want it, I take it because I need it. I don't think a kid, like I teach my kids that stealing a bag of potato chips is a crime of resistance. Because the real crime is you shouldn't be hungry in the first place, that you have to go steal a bag of potato chips to feed yourself. To hold a parent accountable is saying that there's an equality in the world. That's just my opinion, right? So, oh, you didn't have this for your kid, you didn't have this college fund, you didn't have these there's none of those programs exist. There is no way for him to go out to school. You're at work until 6 o'clock. By the time you get off at 5, you take you an hour or 2 hours to get home. He's out of school at 2 or 3. So there's that latchkey circumstances as well, right? So instead of us as a government or as a city or as a state like Memphis, instead of them pouring more resources into the solution, which would be let's create an after school program, let's create these sort of centers, let's create some space or a safe space for young people to be at. We'll double down on money to punish them now. We'll spend more money on police, more money on cops, right? Give you an example, New York. In New York, we have 66,000 people homeless every night. When you talk to Patrick Markey, who runs Coalition for the Homeless, he'll tell you, most of those people are young kids who are sleeping in the trains. And what is our response? Bring the military into the trains and start locking people up in the trains. And then we start talking about how we're going to donate and spend more money on mental health in jail rather than the facilities to help prevent that. You see what I'm saying? So for me, to hold parents accountable, how are we not holding the state accountable for the services that those people need? Young people need resources. Number two, we're talking about a population of not developed people. If you're under 25, your brain is not even developed yet, right?
That's when you should be held accountable as an adult, when you turn 25.
Right, but until then, we're talking about locking kids up 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, and 15, 16, 17, 18. That's the ages we're talking about. Because in New York, give me an example of this conundrum effect. In New York, at 16, you're an adult. 17, you're an adult in the correctional system. 18, you can get kicked out. But between 18 and 21 is the long term. 21, you're legally able to have a lease. 6 months after your 21st or 22nd birthday, you're able to get public assistance. So you're not even considered an adult legally, but you're held legally accountable for being a kid. Doesn't make sense. You could be homeless at 18, you can't sign a lease till you're 21, and there's no services for you for that, but we'll double down on the incarceration if you do something to survive. If you're still in the car to spend money to feed yourself because selling a car will give you more money, then we're not talking about addressing the issue of car theft by having resources so that people won't steal a car. We're going to double down on the punishment for stealing the car. You're still not addressing the gap of services. So all we're doing is building more prisons and jails and the reasons to send kids to prison and jail, in my opinion. And Memphis is a state that doesn't have the resources. And they have this huge, quote unquote, juvenile problem, and holding the parents accountable in a sort of biased statement saying, well, most of these parents don't have education. Yeah, because there are people of color who was held back. Most of these people don't have funds to help. No, they don't, because they were held back financially for so long. And so let's not even talk about the fact that majority of them come from single family households. So now you're going to hold this one mother, mostly the mothers, let's be honest, it's not mostly the father. Most of the fathers in prison or incarcerated or incapacitated, holding them accountable rather than holding the lack of resources accountable. I don't know. I don't think so. And number two, if we're going to charge parents, like look at the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, the kid whose mother drove him to go kill activists at a rally.
Is that the one that's on trial now?
Yeah. right? But we're not talking about holding her accountable. We're talking about just punishing the kid's actions, even though this kid grew up in a militant household and was raised to be this Aryan warrior, right? And so we're not addressing those issues, but we're ready to double down on young black kids. And I hate to say it because this country looks at young black kids of color as like little adults. So like, where's the fight for the resources to prevent that shit from happening?
There's no fight for that.
No, there's no fight for that.
And when I was young, we had Big Apple centers every summer, right in the neighborhood.
You had City Kids, you had, what was the other center?
We had the Children's Aid Society,
and
they took all
Boys
the
and Girls
children.
Club,
It wasn't just how it is now, where you have to sign your kid up and they have to be able to be approved, and you got to bring this in and that in for your child to be able to come to the center. No, every child in the neighborhood, when we
should
was
be able
young,
to come to that center.
Was used to come into the center. My mother didn't even know I was in the center because she was at work.
Right.
But I was in a safe space because we all could go in. Now it's not like that anymore. It's where we have to sign our kid up. We shouldn't have to. If my son want to come in here and play ball, he should be able to come in here and play ball because it's a center for the neighborhood.
My other thing is this, right? Preventive, right? So like in preventive work, won't you have that first interaction? Like, okay, you're in Memphis, you get caught, you get locked up, you do a crime as a kid. Okay, you've done this crime. Now we can backtrack and sort of say that you obviously need help. So where did we go wrong with this? Can we support you doing this? Can we support you doing that? Like work your way backwards to the root of the problem, not forward as in saying, now you're doing a crime, now we're gonna hold you accountable for doing this crime, even though we know you were lacking the needs for the things that you did the crime for. It just sounds like we're blaming the kids for reacting and surviving when we know what they're surviving for and why they're reacting. And Memphis does not have the most progressive young adult issues, as I was even saying on that panel when we did the film screening, right? As the film director, like these services have been taken back, have been cut back. There is no positive facilities to help them. And it's PAA, this sort of parent accountability act, is like, where's the act for the accountability from the state? And so when we look at kids and we look at young people, as we've been having this conversation, we spend about $8 billion a year incarcerating kids for crimes that ain't even really crimes, right? And so why don't we start looking at children as children and start looking at the needs that they have as real needs in this society rather than spending money on the problems of incarceration, which we're all going to end up paying for in the end. So that's my opinion on that. But the news, as you see this article, will just generate it as this is a solution. And then I have a parent who's frustrated and mad on it. Like, oh yeah, I need y'all to have more control over my kids. No, we don't need another welfare state system telling our kids what to do and you having accountability and financially benefiting off of the kid's punishment. Because prisons make money and jails make money. And of course, sending a kid to jail doesn't help anyone. Hey, good evening. Five Mualim Ak here with Incarcerated Nation Network. We're launching a unique network that will be all hosted by those directly impacted. We have a young adult perspective project that is all youth, and they will have their own platform show. And then we'll be bringing a unique talk show series, which is the first New York's reentry talk show called The Art of Return. And so all of that is going to take place on this very channel. Subscribe, hit those buttons, hit that bell so that you can stay tuned. And also, we're going to have free merchandise and also items for subscribed members. New documentaries, if you're interested in being a part of that, email us, incarceratednationnetwork@gmail.com. We make change together.